I was filling out the paperwork to transfer my company shares to my son when my phone buzzed with an email. Subject line: "We need to discuss boundaries." The message was from Michael, my son. "Dad, Veronica and I have been talking. We feel you're too involved in our lives. We need space. Please don't attend the investor dinner next week. It sends the wrong message about our company's leadership." This was after I'd mortgaged my house for $150,000 to fund his startup when no bank would touch it. After I'd worked 16-hour days helping him build the business from nothing. So I hired a lawyer and discovered something interesting. I still owned 20% of a company now worth $8 million. You won't believe what happened when I showed up to claim what was legally mine. Before we continue, please subscribe to Honey Revenge and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. I was sitting at my kitchen table in my house in Portland, the same house I'd lived in for 35 years, the house my late wife Sarah and I had raised Michael in. The afternoon sun came through the window, warming the papers spread in front of me. Stock transfer forms. I'd been planning to sign them that evening, to officially hand over my remaining 20% stake in Tech Venture Solutions to Michael, a gift for his 35th birthday next month. My reading glasses sat on my nose as I reviewed each page carefully, decades of engineering work having taught me to check every detail. Then the email notification chimed. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another newsletter or spam, but I glanced at the preview and saw Michael's name. My heart did that little flutter fathers get when their adult children reach out unexpectedly. Maybe he wanted to grab dinner this week. Maybe he wanted help with something. I opened it and read it once, then twice, then a third time, each reading making the words sink deeper into my chest, like stones. "Dad, Veronica and I have been talking. We feel you're too involved in our lives. We think it's creating an unhealthy dynamic. We need space to establish ourselves as independent adults. Please don't attend the investor dinner next Wednesday. Your presence sends the wrong message about our company's leadership structure. We'll discuss this more when things calm down. Thanks for understanding." I sat back in my chair, the stock transfer forms suddenly feeling heavy under my hands. Too involved. The phrase echoed in my mind. I'd helped him debug code until 3 in the morning when his product kept crashing before the demo. I'd introduced him to my former colleagues who became his first clients. I'd co-signed his office lease when his credit couldn't qualify. Too involved. The investor dinner. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. Michael had specifically invited me last month, saying, "Dad, you've got to be there. These people need to meet the man who believed in me from the start." Now I sent the wrong message. I looked around my kitchen, seeing the framed photo on the refrigerator. Michael's college graduation. I'd paid every penny of his tuition at Stanford because his mother and I wanted him to start life without debt. Another photo showed him in his first office, a cramped space above a dry cleaner. I'd helped him move the furniture in, my back aching for days afterward. My phone sat on the table, screen dark now. I picked it up and typed a response, my thumbs fumbling on the keyboard. "Okay, I understand. Send." The message left with that little whoosh sound, disappearing into the digital void like my presence was being erased from my son's life. I stood up and walked to my home office, the stock transfer forms forgotten on the kitchen table. In my office, I had files, years of files. I pulled out the folder labeled Michael, Tech Venture. Inside were the original investment documents from 6 years ago. I remembered that day clearly. Michael had come to me, discouraged and desperate. He'd been turned down by 12 banks, 3 venture capital firms, and every angel investor he could find. His idea was good, revolutionary even, but he had no track record, no collateral, and the market was still recovering from the tech bubble burst. "Dad," he'd said, sitting in this very office where I now stood, "I know it's a lot to ask, but I believe in this. I just need someone else to believe too." I'd believed. I'd gone to my bank and taken out a home equity line of credit, $150,000, secured against the house Sarah and I had spent decades paying off. The house she'd loved, with her garden in the backyard and her reading nook by the window. I'd put it all on the line for my son's dream. The investment agreement was clear. In exchange for $150,000, I received 20% equity in Tech Venture Solutions. Michael owned 60%, and we'd reserved 20% for future investors or employees. I'd never asked for a return, never demanded dividends, never pushed for control. I just wanted to help my son succeed. And he had succeeded. Tech Venture had grown from that cramped office to a sleek downtown space with 40 employees. They'd landed major contracts with tech giants. Revenue had climbed from $0 to $8 million annually. Michael had made it. I sat down at my desk, the leather chair creaking under my weight. Through my window, I could see Mrs. Patterson next door watering her roses, life continuing normally while my world shifted beneath me. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Instagram, a notification that Michael had posted something. I didn't use Instagram much, but I'd created an account last year to follow Michael and see what he was up to. Sarah would have loved social media, would have filled it with photos of her garden and her book club friends. I opened the app and found Michael's post. It was a photo from what looked like a fancy restaurant. Michael, in a tailored suit, his arm around Veronica. She wore a dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension. The caption read, "Celebrating 6 months with this incredible woman who elevates everything in my life. Sometimes you don't know what's missing until you find it." I stared at the photo, counting the other people visible in the background. A group of well-dressed couples, wine glasses raised in a toast. The restaurant was clearly expensive, the kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters in bow ties. I zoomed in on the faces and recognized 2 of them. The Harrisons, investors Michael had met through my former colleague Doug. 6 months with Veronica. I'd met her exactly twice. The first time was brief, a quick introduction at a coffee shop 4 months ago. "Dad, this is Veronica." Veronica, my dad. She'd given me a smile that didn't reach her eyes and checked her phone within 30 seconds. The second meeting was at Michael's office 3 months ago, and she'd barely acknowledged my presence. I scrolled through more of Michael's Instagram, photos of Veronica and him at charity galas, pictures from what looked like a vacation in the Maldives, posts about leveling up and surrounding yourself with excellence. In the past 6 months, his entire feed had transformed from startup hustle to luxury lifestyle. Not a single photo included me. I scrolled back through a year of posts. There, buried in the past, were occasional mentions. A Father's Day post from last year. "Thanks for everything, Dad." A throwback photo from his college graduation, but nothing recent. It was like I'd been digitally erased. I closed Instagram and opened my email again, rereading Michael's message. "Your presence sends the wrong message about our company's leadership structure." What message was that? That the company had been built with a father's love and sacrifice. That success sometimes started in a cramped office with a father and son moving furniture. The sun was setting outside my window, casting long shadows across my desk. I sat in the growing darkness, not bothering to turn on the lamp. The stock transfer forms were still on my kitchen table, unsigned. A gift I'd been so eager to give just an hour ago. My phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. Michael's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hello, Dad. Hey. Did you get my email?" "I did." There was a pause. Background noise suggested he was somewhere public, maybe a restaurant or bar. Voices and laughter echoed behind him. "So, we're good? You understand about the dinner?" I took a deep breath. "Help me understand something, Michael. What exactly is the wrong message I send?" Another pause. Longer this time. "It's complicated, Dad. I've got time. Look, Veronica and I are trying to position the company for the next level. We're talking to serious investors. People who need to see that we're running a professional operation, not a family business." "I see. And having your father there, the man who risked his home to fund you when nobody else would, that makes it look unprofessional? That's not fair." His voice had an edge now. "I appreciate everything you did, but that was 6 years ago. Things are different now." "What's different?" "Dad, come on. You know what I mean. These investors, they move in certain circles. They expect a certain presentation." Understanding hit me like a physical blow. "I'm an embarrassment." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Let me guess. Veronica's parents are going to this dinner?" Silence confirmed my suspicion. "Michael, her father owns 3 car dealerships. Her mother runs a boutique. They're not venture capitalists. Why are they invited when I'm not? They understand the lifestyle we're building." His voice was defensive now, the tone he'd used as a teenager when caught in a lie. "The lifestyle you're building on my $150,000. Jesus, Dad, are you really going to throw that in my face? I thought it was an investment, not a loan with emotional interest. The cruelty of that statement took my breath away. It was an investment in you, in us, in your future. And I'm grateful. But that doesn't mean you get to be involved in every aspect of my life forever. Veronica says it's important to establish boundaries with family. Veronica says, does Veronica know that I still own 20% of your company? We'll buy you out when the time is right. You'll get your money back. What if I don't want to be bought out? His laugh was sharp and humorless. Dad, come on. What are you going to do with equity in a tech company? You don't understand this world. I understood it well enough to fund it when you were begging every investor in Portland. That's not fair. Neither is being uninvited from watching my son's success. The success I helped build. Background noise on his end grew louder. Someone called his name, a woman's voice. Veronica, I have to go, Dad. We'll talk about this later when you've calmed down. Michael. But he'd already hung up. I sat holding the phone, my hand trembling slightly. Calm down, as if my hurt and anger were irrational emotions that needed managing. I walked to my kitchen and looked at the stock transfer forms under the lamplight. My signature line sat empty, waiting for me to complete the gift. Next to it was my reading glasses and a pen, everything ready for me to give away 20% of $8 million. $1.6 million in equity, about to be transferred as a birthday gift to a son who thought I was an embarrassment. I picked up the forms and walked them back to my office. Instead of the signature drawer, I filed them in the back of my cabinet, behind old tax returns and insurance papers. Then I pulled out my phone and searched for Business Attorney, Portland, Oregon. The next morning found me in the waiting room of Patterson and Associates, a law firm housed in a renovated building in downtown Portland. I'd chosen them because they specialized in business disputes and had good reviews. The receptionist offered me coffee, which I accepted, sipping it slowly while I waited. Mr. Caldwell? A woman in her 40s appeared, extending her hand. I'm Jennifer Patterson. Please, come in. Her office was professional but warm, with law books lining one wall and family photos on her desk. She gestured to a comfortable chair across from her desk and settled into her own seat. Thank you for seeing me on short notice, I said. Of course. Your message said this was regarding a business equity matter? I pulled out my folder and handed her the investment documents. 6 years ago, I invested $150,000 in my son's startup. In return, I received 20% equity. The company has grown significantly. I want to understand my rights as a shareholder. Jennifer put on her reading glasses and reviewed the documents carefully, making occasional notes on a legal pad. After several minutes, she looked up. This is a straightforward equity agreement. You own 20% of Tech Venture Solutions. Have you been receiving financial statements? Attending shareholder meetings? No to both. I didn't want to interfere. I thought I was being supportive by staying hands-off. Mr. Caldwell, staying hands-off and waiving your legal rights are different things. As a 20% shareholder, you're entitled to quarterly financial statements, the right to attend board meetings, and the right to vote on major company decisions. I had no idea. Most small family businesses operate informally. But as the company grows, those formalities become important. She flipped through more pages. Has your son ever offered to buy back your shares? He mentioned it yesterday. Said they'd buy me out when the time is right. At what valuation? We didn't discuss specifics. Jennifer made another note. Do you know the current value of the company? Revenue is around $8 million annually. I'm not sure about valuation. She did some quick calculations. For a tech company with that revenue, depending on growth rate and profit margins, we're likely looking at a valuation somewhere between $8 and $15 million. Your 20% could be worth anywhere from $1.6 to $3 million. The numbers made my coffee cup pause halfway to my lips. $3 million? Possibly. I'd need to see their books to give you an accurate number, which, as a shareholder, you have every right to request. She leaned forward, her expression serious. Mr. Caldwell, may I ask what prompted this visit? Something changed recently, didn't it? I told her about the email, the investor dinner, the conversation about sending the wrong message. As I spoke, her expression grew more concerned. Has he been making major decisions without consulting you? Bringing in new investors? Taking on debt? I honestly don't know. Like I said, I stayed hands-off. That needs to change. Here's what I recommend. We send a formal letter to Tech Venture Solutions, exercising your rights as a shareholder. We request full financial statements for the past 6 years, notification of all board meetings and major decisions, and a current company valuation. This isn't aggressive. It's simply asserting rights you already have. Will this damage my relationship with my son further? Jennifer's smile was sympathetic. Mr. Caldwell, from what you've told me, that relationship is already damaged. The question is whether you're going to protect yourself legally. If your son is operating this company properly, he should have no problem providing this information. If he's not, she let the implication hang. I thought about Michael's voice on the phone. The casual cruelty of emotional interest. The ease with which he'd uninvited me from witnessing his success. Let's send the letter, I said. 3 days later, I was in my garden when my phone rang. I'd been pulling weeds, something Sarah and I used to do together on Saturday mornings. The physical work felt good, therapeutic. When I saw Michael's name, I wiped the dirt from my hands and answered, "Dad, what the hell is this?" No greeting, just immediate anger. You'll have to be more specific. This letter from your lawyer, demanding financial statements and company information. Are you serious? I sat down on the garden bench, the same bench where Sarah and I had shared our morning coffee for years. I'm exercising my rights as a shareholder. This is ridiculous. You're my father, not some hostile investor. I'm both. I'm your father who invested $150,000, and I'm a shareholder with legal rights. This is because of the dinner, isn't it? Because I hurt your feelings, now you're trying to punish me? This is because I realized I've been too hands-off. I trusted you to treat my investment with respect. But somewhere along the way, you started treating it like a gift you could ignore. I built this company, Dad. Me. I'm the one who worked 90-hour weeks. I'm the one who landed the clients and managed the team. With my $150,000, with the house I put at risk, with the connections I provided. You didn't build it alone, Michael. No matter how much Veronica makes you think you did, don't bring her into this. She's already in this. She's the one who decided I'm an embarrassment. She's the one who told you to establish boundaries with your family. She's trying to help me succeed. By cutting out the people who helped you get there? That's not success, Michael. That's amnesia. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing heavily, trying to control his anger. Fine. You want the financial statements? You'll get them. But don't think this doesn't change things between us. Things already changed, son. I'm just catching up. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in the garden, holding the phone, wondering when my relationship with my son had become a series of angry phone calls and cold silences. The financial statements arrived via email a week later, forwarded by Jennifer with her analysis. I sat at my kitchen table reading through her summary, my coffee growing cold as the numbers sank in. Tech Venture Solutions was indeed worth approximately $12 million. My 20% stake, $2.4 million. But that wasn't what made my hands shake as I held the papers. According to the documents, Michael had brought in new investors 8 months ago. He'd sold them 15% of the company for $1. $2 million. He'd done this without telling me, without offering me the chance to buy additional shares, and without my vote as a shareholder. More troubling, the investor was Veronica's father, Charles Whitmore. The same Charles Whitmore who was invited to the investor dinner I'd been excluded from. Jennifer had highlighted sections in yellow. This transaction required shareholder approval per the original operating agreement. The fact that it proceeded without your knowledge is a serious violation. I read further. Michael had given himself a salary of $350,000 a year. Reasonable, perhaps, but more than triple what he'd paid himself 2 years ago. Veronica had been hired as Director of Business Development at $180,000 annually. I checked the dates. She'd been hired 6 months ago, right when Michael had met her. Company expenses showed lavish spending. The Maldives trip I'd seen on Instagram was billed as a corporate retreat. Dinners at expensive restaurants were labeled client development. A BMW 7 Series was leased as a company car. Jennifer's note at the bottom read, "We need to talk. This company is being treated as a personal piggy bank. Call me." I called her immediately. "Mr. Caldwell," she answered. "I assume you've reviewed the documents." "I have. What do I do?" "You have several options. 1. You can demand a seat on the board. As a 20% shareholder, you have that right. 2. You can demand they buy out your shares at fair market value, which would be $2.4 million. 3. You can file a shareholder oppression lawsuit, arguing that Michael has been operating the company in a way that harms minority shareholders. What would you recommend? Honestly, I'd start with option 1. Demand a board seat. Force transparency. If he refuses or continues to make decisions without proper approval, then we escalate. But having a board seat gives you oversight and prevents future violations. He'll fight me on this. Probably. But he doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. The operating agreement is clear. You're entitled to representation. That evening, I drafted an email to Michael with Jennifer's help. It was formal and clear. I was exercising my right to a seat on the company board, effective immediately. All future major decisions required my approval as outlined in the operating agreement. I requested a formal board meeting within 14 days. I hit send and waited. The response came faster than expected. Within an hour, my phone rang. Michael again, but this time, there was something different in his voice. Not anger, but calculation. Dad, let's meet in person. Tomorrow. Coffee at that place you like on Hawthorne. Why? Because we need to talk like adults, not through lawyers. Please. The cafe on Hawthorne was one Sarah and I had frequented. Local, cozy, the kind of place that served good coffee without pretension. I arrived early and chose a table in the back corner, away from other customers. Michael walked in 15 minutes late, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. He'd gotten a haircut since I last saw him, styled in that deliberately casual way that somehow costs $150. He spotted me and walked over, his expression carefully neutral. Dad. He sat down without ordering anything. Michael. We looked at each other across the table. The distance between us measured in more than just feet. This is getting out of hand, he started. The lawyers, the formal demands. This isn't how families should operate. I agree. Families should be invited to investor dinners. Families shouldn't be called embarrassments. He had the grace to look away. I handled that badly. I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you sorry that I'm asserting my legal rights? Can it be both? He leaned forward. Look, I've been under a lot of pressure. Growing the company, managing investors, planning for the future. Veronica's been helping me see things from a business perspective, and maybe I've lost sight of the personal side. The business perspective that hired her at $180,000 a year? His jaw tightened. She's qualified. She has an MBA from Northwestern. So do a lot of people willing to work for less. Did you interview anyone else for the position? That's not the point. It's exactly the point, Michael. You're running the company like it's your personal kingdom. You brought in Veronica's father as an investor without my approval. You're spending company money on luxury vacations and expensive cars. You've tripled your own salary. And through all of this, you never once thought to include the man who made it all possible. I was going to make it right eventually. Buy you out fairly. At what valuation? When? Under what terms? I pulled out a sheet of paper from my jacket pocket. Your company is worth $12 million. My 20% is worth $2.4 million. But you were going to wait until the time was right. Which probably means after you diluted my shares further or found some creative accounting to lower the valuation. That's not true, isn't it? You sold 15% to Charles Whitmore 8 months ago. That should have diluted everyone equally, but somehow your ownership stayed at 60%, which means you diluted my shares and the employee pool to protect yourself. His face went red. Who told you that? It's in the financial statements you sent. The ones my lawyer actually bothered to read. We sat in tense silence. Other customers chatted around us, oblivious to the family drama unfolding in the corner. What do you want? Michael finally asked. I want what I'm legally entitled to. A board seat, quarterly financial reviews, approval rights on major decisions. Basically, I want to be treated like the 20% shareholder I am, not like an embarrassing relative you're trying to erase. And if I give you that, then we operate professionally. You run the day-to-day, but you run it with proper oversight. No more secret investor deals. No more hiring girlfriends at inflated salaries. No more treating company money like your personal checking account. his hands clenched on the table. Veronica said you'd try to take over. She warned me about this. Veronica doesn't know me. What did she tell you? That I'm some old man trying to relive his glory days? That I'm jealous of your success? Something like that. And you believed her instead of remembering who I actually am. I'm the man who sat with you during every failed science project, who taught you to drive, who held you when your mother died. I'm the man who believed in you when nobody else would. But sure, listen to the woman you've known for 6 months about who I am. Something shifted in his expression. For just a moment, I saw the boy he'd been, uncertain and vulnerable. I miss her too, you know, he said quietly. Mom, every day. Then honor her memory by being the man she raised. She taught you better than this. Veronica says I need to stop living in the past. Some parts of the past are worth keeping, like integrity, like loyalty, like remembering where you came from. He stood up abruptly. I need to think about this. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. He walked out without another word. I sat alone at the table, my coffee still untouched, wondering if I'd just lost my son completely. 2 weeks later, Jennifer called with news. He's agreed to the board seat, reluctantly, but legally. The first board meeting is scheduled for next Friday at the Tech Venture offices. Did he seem cooperative? His lawyer was professional. That's the best I can say. Be prepared for resistance, Mr. Caldwell. He's not happy about this. The Tech Venture offices were in a renovated warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and modern furniture. I'd never actually been inside the new space. Michael had moved here 2 years ago, but never invited me to see it. The receptionist looked surprised when I gave my name. Mr. Caldwell? For the board meeting? That's right. She made a quick phone call, whispered something I couldn't hear, then hung up. They're in the conference room, 3rd floor, to your right. I took the elevator up, my stomach tight with nerves. The 3rd floor opened onto an open office space where young employees worked at standing desks, typing on expensive computers. They glanced at me curiously as I walked past. The conference room had glass walls. Through them, I could see Michael sitting at the head of a long table. Next to him was Veronica, looking polished and professional in a designer suit. Across from them sat a man I recognized from photos as Charles Whitmore, Veronica's father. I opened the door and walked in. Dad. Michael's greeting was stiff. You know Veronica. This is Charles Whitmore, our other investor. Charles stood and shook my hand. He was in his 60s, with the confident handshake of a successful businessman. Richard. Good to finally meet you. Michael's told me a lot about you. I doubted that, but I returned the handshake. Charles. We all sat. Michael opened a folder in front of him. Let's get started. This is the quarterly board review, as you can see from the agenda. Before we begin, I interrupted, I have some questions about the previous quarter, specifically about unauthorized expenditures and decision-making processes. Veronica's expression hardened. Mr. Caldwell, perhaps we should follow the agenda. Miss Whitmore, with respect, you're not a board member. You're an employee. Her face flushed. Michael jumped in. Dad, Veronica is here as the Director of Business Development. Then she can leave when we discuss business development, compensation, and hiring practices. Charles cleared his throat. Richard has a point. Board meetings should be shareholders only. Veronica looked at Michael, who seemed torn. Finally, he nodded. Veronica, could you give us the room? She stood, her heels clicking sharply on the floor as she left. Through the glass walls, I could see her watching us from her desk. Happy now? Michael asked. I'm here to ensure proper governance. Let's talk about the $1.2 million investment from Charles that I was never consulted about. What followed was 3 hours of tense discussion. I went through questionable expenses line by line. The Maldives retreat, the BMW lease, the restaurant bills. Each time, Michael had an explanation, but they grew weaker as we progressed. Charles, to his credit, seemed increasingly uncomfortable. Michael, I have to say, some of these expenses are concerning. I invested in a growing business, not a lifestyle brand. We need to maintain a certain image, Michael started. You need to maintain profitability. I cut in. This company is generating $8 million in revenue but only showing $400,000 in profit. Where's the other money going? Michael's jaw clenched. Operating expenses, salaries, growth investments. Growth investments like your girlfriend's $180,000 salary? She's qualified. Show me her results. What has she actually delivered? What clients has she brought in? What deals has she closed? Silence. Charles flipped through his own papers. Michael, I'd like to see performance metrics for all executive salaries, including yours. This is ridiculous. You're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal. We're treating you like what you are, I said quietly. An employee who happens to own shares. But you still answer to the board. To us. And right now, the numbers don't justify the spending. The meeting ended with a mandate. Michael had 30 days to provide detailed justification for all executive compensation and major expenses. Future spending over $25,000 required board approval, and all hiring decisions for positions over $100,000 needed board review. Michael looked furious as we filed out. Charles shook my hand again. Good meeting, Richard. This company needs oversight. I'm glad you're here. After he left, Michael and I stood alone in the conference room. I hope you're satisfied, he said bitterly. I hope you understand that this is how real businesses operate, with accountability, with transparency. This is about control. You can't stand that I've succeeded. If this were about control, I'd have demanded this 6 years ago. This is about you forgetting where you came from and who helped you get here. I'll never forget that you held that $150,000 over my head. The unfairness of that statement nearly took my breath away. I never mentioned it. Not once. Not when you didn't invite me to the office opening. Not when you stopped calling. Not when you started erasing me from your life. I only brought it up when you tried to erase my legal rights too. He had no response to that. He just gathered his papers and walked out, leaving me alone in the conference room, surrounded by the glass walls of his success. Over the next month, Michael provided the requested documentation. Jennifer reviewed it with me, highlighting problems. Veronica's performance reviews were vague and generous, despite no measurable results. Michael's salary had increased based on market rate adjustments that didn't align with actual market data. Company credit cards showed thousands in personal expenses incorrectly categorized as business. At the next board meeting, Charles and I presented our findings. We proposed reducing Michael's salary to $250,000 until profitability improved. Veronica's position would be eliminated, as there was no justification for the role. Company expenses would be subject to stricter controls. Michael fought us on every point. The meeting lasted 5 hours. Finally, Charles said, Michael, I have $1.2 million invested here. Richard has $150,000 and 6 years of faith in you. We're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to save this company from becoming a vanity project. If you can't accept oversight, I added, then perhaps it's time to discuss a buyout. Either you buy our shares at fair market value, or we buy yours. Michael's face went pale. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You can either run this company professionally, or you can run it alone. But you can't have our money and our trust while treating us like inconveniences. The vote was 2-1. Michael's salary would be reduced. Veronica's position was eliminated, effective immediately. Stricter financial controls would be implemented. Michael stood up, his chair scraping loudly. This is a coup. You're trying to steal my company. This is governance, Charles said calmly. Welcome to having real investors. Michael walked out. Through the glass walls, I watched him go to Veronica's desk. They had an intense, whispered conversation. She looked shocked, then angry. They both left the office together. Jennifer called me that evening. Michael's lawyer contacted me. He wants to discuss a buyout. Of his shares or ours? He wants to buy you both out. He's offering $1.5 million for your 20%. That's $900,000 less than fair market value. I know. He's hoping you'll take a loss just to get out. What did you tell him? I told him to come back with a real offer. Meanwhile, Charles is interested in discussing something else. He wants to potentially buy Michael out. That got my attention. Explain. Charles has been doing more research. He thinks Tech Venture's core technology is valuable, but Michael's management is holding it back. He's willing to pay Michael $5 million for his 60% stake. That would give Charles controlling interest. He's offered you a choice. Sell your shares to him for fair market value plus a premium, or stay on as a minority shareholder with him running things. And Michael? would be out completely. Charles would bring in professional management. I thought about my son, about the boy who'd sat in my office with desperate hope in his eyes, about the man he'd become, shaped by success and Veronica's influence into someone I barely recognized. I need to talk to Michael first. One more time. I called him the next morning. He didn't answer. I called again and again. Finally, on the fourth call, he picked up. What do you want? To talk. In person. Just you and me. No lawyers. No Veronica. No Charles. Why should I? Because I'm still your father. And you're still my son. We can hate each other through lawyers for years. Or we can have one honest conversation. A long pause. Fine. Coffee shop. Same place. Tomorrow morning. He was already there when I arrived, looking tired. He'd aged in the past months, new lines around his eyes. I sat down across from him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Charles wants to buy you out, I finally said. Michael's eyes widened. He told you that? His lawyer contacted mine. $5 million for your 60%. He'd bring in professional management. And you? What do you get out of this? Fair market value for my shares. Or I could stay on as a minority shareholder. So you've already decided. You're choosing him over me. I haven't decided anything. That's why I'm here. What do you want me to say, Dad? That I'm sorry? That I screwed up? Fine. I'm sorry. I let Veronica influence me. I got caught up in the lifestyle. I made mistakes. Do you actually mean that? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? He rubbed his face with both hands. I don't know anymore. I don't know what's real and what's me trying to impress people who don't actually care about me. For the first time in months, he sounded like my son. Michael, I'm going to be honest with you. The way you've been running the company isn't sustainable. Even if we don't force you out, you're headed for trouble. But more than that, the way you've been treating people, treating me, it's not who your mother raised you to be. Don't bring Mom into this. She's already in it. Every decision you make, she's watching. What would she think of you hiring your girlfriend at $180,000? Of you excluding your father from your success? Of you choosing new money over old loyalty? His eyes were wet now. She'd be disappointed. Yes, she would. But she'd also believe you could do better. I believe that too. Even after everything? You're my son. That doesn't change. But I can love you and still hold you accountable. We sat in silence, the cafe bustling around us. What happens now? He asked. That's up to you. You can fight us and lose everything. You can accept the buyout and walk away with $5 million but no company. Or you can accept the oversight, run the company properly, and build something actually sustainable. What would you choose? I'd choose integrity over ego. But I'm not you. You have to decide who you want to be. He nodded slowly. Can I have some time to think? Take the time you need. We stood to leave. At the door, he paused. Dad, I am sorry. Really. I know, son. I know. 3 weeks later, we reconvened. Michael had made his decision. He accepted the oversight. Veronica was gone. Their relationship ended. Michael's salary was reduced as proposed. He apologized to Charles and committed to running the company professionally. It wasn't perfect. Our relationship remained strained. But slowly, meeting by meeting, we began to rebuild, not as the father and son we'd been, but as something new, business partners with shared history and hard-earned respect. 6 months later, Tech Venture closed its most profitable quarter ever. At the board meeting, Michael presented a proposal. I want to establish a profit-sharing program. 20% of annual profits distributed to shareholders based on ownership percentage. I looked at the numbers. If this continued, my 20% could generate $200,000 annually in distributions. Why the change? Charles asked. Michael looked at me. Because I realized something. The people who believed in me from the start deserved to share in the success. Not just in equity, but in actual returns. The motion passed unanimously. After the meeting, Michael and I walked out together. Your mother would be proud, I said. I hope so. I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. We shook hands, then on impulse, hugged. It was brief, slightly awkward, but real. That evening, I sat in my garden, the place Sarah and I had built together. I thought about the journey from that desperate email to this moment, about nearly losing my son and finding him again, about the price of success and the value of integrity. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Love you, Dad." I typed back, "Love you too, son. Always." The sun set over Portland, casting golden light across Sarah's roses. I could almost feel her presence, her approval. We'd raised him right. He'd lost his way for a while, but he'd found it again. And in finding it, we'd found each other. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to Honey Revenge, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Let us know. And click the video on the left to hear another story of family, betrayal, and redemption.